Hello, guys and girls. The program you are about to hear will be both fun and educational, but it is not a substitute for medical advice. Although we are doctors, we are not your doctors. Hello and welcome to Travel Medicine. As always, I'm your friendly neighborhood internal medicine doc, Dr. J.
Hey guys, Dr. Santhosh here, pediatric infectious disease doc and researcher.
You know what holiday we missed, Santosh? I know I went on and on about Halloween for a while there.
Sure.
But
yeah. I was kind of sad we missed like Indigenous Peoples Day. I don't know if we could do anything for it. There is a lot to say about our wonderful, Indigenous people here in the United States and Canada. They'd be called First Nations people. But is that the one you're talking about?
No, way to elevate the conversation, though. I was
No.
talking about International Talk Like a Pirate Day.
Oh, yar. What day is that?
It'd be September 19th, mate.
Yeah. I don't know. Does it have, because September 19th is kind of arbitrary. Like it doesn't have anything, that sounds vaguely piratey, right?
No, it's an entirely invented holiday by newspaper columnists, but that's not important right now.
No, because I mean, in Star Wars lingos, you have May the 4th be with you, and 2 days later, the Revenge of the 6th. But it's, it kind of rhymes, it kind of flows with it and that kind of a thing. I didn't know if that could happen too over here.
So you know what holiday we missed recently was International Talk Like a Pirate Day.
Yeah. All right. International Talk Like a Pirate Day, matey. Yes.
And when I think of pirates, it gets me wondering about all the accessories. Being a pirate sounds expensive, which is why I think you're always looking for booty.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's booty kind of booty, but there's also, the actual money and jewels kind of booty that can help you buy other stuff, including booty.
So this week, I wanted to talk about the most dangerous accessory a pirate could have.
Yeah. Okay. His big curvy sword.
Good thought, but no. Every pirate, I'm sure, was properly trained in the use of their weapons. Most of them having come from the Navy or being kidnapped off other ships.
Okay. Was it their democratic laws and, spurning, royalty and that kind of nonsense because they believed in equality and the vote and all that kind of stuff?
No, although those are all surprisingly true as well, as we've learned from the Pirate Museum in Nassau, Bahamas.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
No. Think harder. What is the most dangerous thing a pirate would have on them?
Not on their ship, like a giant cannon that could blow a hole in the thing, right? Hook for a hand? What about hook for a hand?
I guess possibility of tetanus. But no, I'm thinking... I mean, you'd have to be crackers not to get it.
Oh, I never thought of this as dangerous. Are you talking about their, like, Polly the pirate? No, Polly the parrot?
Yeah.
Rattle me bones, rattle me bones, like that kind of thing?
That's right. So I'm going to tell you a story.
Okay.
And it's going to start with a parrot.
Okay.
And take you deep into... Argentina, and eventually to the U.S., a tale woven with theatrics.
Oh.
With mystery.
Oh, nice.
With death.
Oh, okay.
And it all will serve as a prelude to our episode, which this week is Around the World in 80 Plagues.
Oh. And there goes a few more notches off the old high register hearing. Absolutely. Yeah, okay.
You're old. You don't have those registers anyway.
I know. If You had some teenagers who just wanted to, like my soon-to-be teenage daughter. If she wants to get some things past me, she can just start talking like this, and then I'm none the wiser. Yeah, absolutely. Which it still begs the question: how am I still able to hear that racket? But that's a question for another day.
Back to our story.
Yes, sir.
The original parrots,
yeah,
came from a shipment in Brazil, presumably caught in Curious George fashion.
Oh,
now they had been kept in overcrowded crates, packaged in unsanitary conditions.
Oh, poor things. Okay, so they were just kind of stuffed in there
and sent to a very popular location for a purchasing of parrots.
Okay.
A paradise of parrot purchasing, if you will.
Okay. Sure.
And that, surprisingly, was 1920s Argentina.
Oh, so wait, it went from Brazil to Argentina?
Well, this particular ship full of parrots, and among those parrots,
yes,
lurks our killer.
Oh no! Oh
an
my
unknown,
God.
An unknown killer.
Yes. Okay. And we're in and around the world. I'm getting there. So we're talking about some bird carrying pathogens. Absolutely. Okay. I have a few going around in my mind. Okay.
These parrots went out to various households in Argentina, but one parrot had dreams bigger than just being locked in a cage. As songbird for some family unappreciative of its talents. No, this bird wanted to be a star.
Wow. Okay, so he wanted to sing. He wanted to get some singing out there, and maybe hit Broadway one of those days and that kind of thing. All right.
No, there was a play going on in Argentina, and this parrot had been cast in a starring role. And you know how the parrot knew it was a starring role?
Okay, how did it know it was in a starring? Oh, was it one of those where when it flew over to the local theater, it you had the marquee and his name was up in lights, Polly, like that kind of thing, or her name?
Because there was a scene in this play, and I'm not going to tell you the name because I don't know the name of the play, but picture something dramatic. 1920s style marquee, big lights.
Okay.
Carmen Mas, the show star, a well-known Argentinian comedian.
Okay, gotcha.
Her leading man, Florencia Paravincini.
Oh my God, what a beautiful name. Okay, all right.
And at least 8 other cast members all had to stroke or pet this parrot during a prominent scene in the play.
Okay. So as in, their whole thing was to actually kind of pet the pirate.
Boom, like that.
Yeah.
But let me now whisk you away from Argentina to small town USA. Any town. Let's say Annapolis in Maryland, where Dr. Willis P. Martin was making an urgent house call on the evening of January 6th, 1930.
Wait, Josh, you just took me all the way from Argentina to Maryland. What's going on here?
Sister cities?
So wait, are we going to hear what happened to the actors later?
Stay tuned for this episode of Around the World in 80 Plagues.
Oh, okay. I had the cans half off my ears and then I put them back on. Can't believe you rope-a-doped me like that. All right, move on. Maryland.
On the evening of January 6th, 1930, Dr. Willis P. Martin paid an urgent house call on the family in Annapolis, Maryland, who,
Yeah.
shortly after Christmas, had begun to feel slightly feverish.
Oh,
At
okay. Okay.
first, at first, they attributed their symptoms to influenza, and of course, who wouldn't feel bad with the recent stock market crash?
Sure, sure. So I'm guessing there were flu-like symptoms that were going along here. So like coughs or runny nose, congestion, that kind of a thing.
Yeah, a little bit of an irritable cough, maybe some
Okay.
constipation, some
Okay.
fatigue. The wife wasn't sleeping well. The normal flu stuff, but this had gone on for about a week, and now
Oh.
they were deathly ill.
Oh no. Oh no.
Now, Dr. Martin suspected pneumonia,
Oh,
maybe
oh
typhoid
okay.
fever, maybe a
Okay.
mix.
Of course, we in infectious diseases love a mix. You can certainly have more than one thing, although we're taught in medical school to try not to do that as much as possible.
Well, he said, typhoid fever seems like an option, except the husband, who had eaten all the same meals as the rest of the family, was perfectly well. So,
Right.
foodborne
So
illnesses.
yeah, yeah. So Salmonella typhi, right, is usually transmitted fecal oral. The person who prepares the food doesn't wash their hands properly, and then you ingest it, and then the salmonella goes from your intestines into your bloodstream and starts wreaking havoc. So yeah, generally speaking, if everyone's sharing meals, especially if there's no hand washing in between or anything like that, and this was an era when hand washing wasn't super popular. So yeah,
Yes,
everyone should.
totally unlike today.
Yeah. But no, everyone should be, kind of, equally infected. Hence, the myth of typhoid Mary way back when, that one person who's infected doesn't wash their hands preparing
Well,
food. Lots of people
wasn't
get it.
typhoid.
It wasn't.
So,
Yeah. Okay.
wasn't typhoid. And Dr. Martin continued to ask around for all other possible sources of infection.
Okay.
Sick contacts, recent travel, any pets, and gosh, wouldn't you know it, there was a parrot that the husband had purchased from a pet store in Baltimore. Um,
Oh.
but but by Christmas Eve, the plumage had grown a little ruffled and dirty, and the creature was showing signs of listlessness. And it's not a reliable pet store because wouldn't you know, come Christmas Day, the parrot was dead.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Okay. So, all right. And again, 80 plagues and stuff. So we might be thinking about, a zoonotic disease that can affect both animals and humans, well, human animals as well as bird animals. Okay. Gotcha.
Now, let's fly back over, hop on our traveling Indiana Jones style red dot,
Oh,
and go
sure.
back to
Okay.
Argentina,
Okay. Okay.
where the theater was now closed. The theater where the troupe had been performing was shuttered.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. Oh, what happened here?
well, you see, Carmen Mas and Florencia Paravincini
Mm-hmm.
were both dead.
Oh.
Well,
Oh
I'm
my
sorry, Carmen
gosh.
Mas, hold on. Carmen Mas was dead, and Florencia Paranvincini was late. Shoot, and Florencia Paravincini was laid up after 17 days of agony. Looked as though he finally was on the road to recovery, as well as 8 other actors who had gotten sick as a result of being in that play. A play
Wow.
which folks wondered if it was cursed, at least initially, until a doctor at
Okay.
the hospital
All right.
put 2 and 2 together. For you see, he had been to the show and he had seen that the actors had been required to pet the parrot on stage, and
Okay.
that
Okay.
said bird had since died.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I'm guessing he didn't know what was going on, but he knew that, like something was wrong, and the common thread was this bird. So the same way, for instance, that, if you had an issue with a farm, and the farmer and his wife got sick, and you said, "Oh, what else is going on?" Well, you look around and you say, "Oh, maybe all of the cattle also got sick and were dying, or the sheep, or all these kind of things." So yeah.
So as a result, he said, "This is an ex-parrot."
Josh, you're mixing up medicine and Monty Python again.
He shuffled off this mortal coil.
I've told you not to mix up your pythons with your caduceuses.
He's not sleeping. He's pushing up the daisies. So
yeah.
an alert similar to that, I imagine, was issued by the Asistencia Pública, the Argentine National Health Board.
Well, you think that because, like, when they were trying to announce an outbreak, they used a Monty Python gag, is what you're saying?
I think they would have been aware of it, even though it came 50 years later.
Sure.
Soon,
okay.
Reports of similar outbreaks connected to sick parrots, but diagnosed as typhoid or influenza, were coming to light throughout the country, which meant huge numbers of parrots were then summarily executed throughout the country, healthy or not, as people panicked. The stock price of parrots plummeted. What? People wanted to get parrots the hell out of the country. But you know who was stuck with a bunch of parrots on their hands? Unscrupulous pet dealers.
Oh my, okay. So, and we have to go back a little bit here, because there is a normal animal trade going on during these times, but are we already at a point in time, you're saying, where there is a regular animal trade, like with customs and all that kind of a thing, and then there's like black market trade, like an illicit trade?
Well, you see, with all of these outbreaks, it was a regular poppin' parrot pandemic.
Oh no. Yeah. So they had to do what's called a cull. And this has happened before, a few times. A lot of times with rodents, where you have to do a rodent cull. We've had to do deer culls.
Well, no, the cull was let me step in. The cull was taken out or done by a overenthusiastic and concerned citizenry. Argentina, however, outlawed the trade of exotic birds, having finally traced our theater parrot to a shipment from Brazil. This left the remaining birds in the country in bulk, our bulk birds.
Yeah.
During the previous parrot pandemic.
Yeah. And they had to bargain off their bulk birds. Yeah.
Right. So these bargain bulk birds were with unscrupulous dealers who would say, "Hey, look, a cruise ship stopping at Buenos Aires." And you know who doesn't read Argentinian newspapers?
Oh, no.
And might love to buy this colorful, beautiful bird at special price just for you?
So I've got a side story on this. I can tell it at the end of our 80 Plagues, but remind me about my side story on a 21st century equivalent of this that I actually witnessed firsthand. So basically, there was a call that went out and said, "Please stop selling these birds. They're unsafe." And instead of, killing them or, getting rid of them in a safe manner, these folks said, no, I'm still going to try to make a buck off of these things. And because there's
these people said I would never spread disease among my countrymen.
I see.
Let me sell these sickly birds to
Sure.
tourists.
Yeah. This is like, kind of revenge on the colonists kind of a thing where the folks of
So now,
Argentina. Yeah.
traveling back via dead parrot from
Okay.
Argentina. So traveling back from Argentina to the United States as the dead parrot flies.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Straight shot across the globe.
Morrill Goddard, editor of the American Weekly, a magazine exactly halfway as respectable as the New Yorker and the tabloid Inquirer.
Oh, okay. So you just a rag, an absolute rag. Okay.
No, exactly halfway between the New Yorker and the Inquirer,
Sure.
had spotted this tale about a troop in an obscure Argentine scientific journal the previous November. And
Oh,
he
okay.
wired the paper's Buenos Aires correspondent asking for further details. It was the
Okay.
correspondent who managed to trace the surviving cast members.
Oh, okay. Okay. So some
And
real
after
investigative journalism here. Okay.
and after the prop man as well, and they wired all this up, wrote it up, and just published it as, oh, hey, look, a parrot killed a famous celebrity and caused a massive thing. The kind of stuff you'd expect to read in the New Yorker of a massive disease outbreak mixed with, and it was all caused by one starved parrot. Um,
Gotcha. So they were,
however,
I mean, yeah, go ahead.
however, this U.S. Weekly, or this People's sort of magazine,
Yeah.
made its way to the home of a Mrs. Dr. Martin.
Oh, okay, cool. Very cool.
And as Dr. Martin came home baffled by the family's symptoms, sharing his bewilderment over dinner with his wife, when Dr.
Okay.
Martin mentioned the dead parrot, she said, well, just this last Sunday, I'd been reading about an outbreak of parrot fever in Buenos Aires, and then 1950s sitcom music cued in. In
Yeah.
Now, that I think brings us to Santhosh. Do you have enough information to identify this disease, this pandemic of 1929 to 1930?
So I have a few thoughts in my mind about, where you could be going with this, because this is bird to human transmission. So the bigger ones that would have been able to be seen by a microscope at that time, I don't know if it was already discovered, but Cryptococcus is one of these where it's a big fungal yeast and you can see it on the microscope. That one can certainly cause respiratory disease, but usually that doesn't kill the parrot. There are influenzas that we're always worried about that pass, between birds and humans and other animals and mutate and then can pass along that way. But it seems a little too acute because I also would have remembered a bird flu or avian flu spreading that way, and it's not ringing a bell. So the other one, if you're talking about respiratory symptoms, and then bird going to human, and then the birds are dying and the humans are dying, this one right here, Josh, it's usually thought of as a sexually transmitted disease. But these were not a bunch of, they weren't boning parrots, but it's a species of chlamydia. And there's chlamydia trachomatis, which we think of as STI, but there's also chlamydia, what we call, I never know how to pronounce this, psittaci or Psittaci. It's Psittaci.
Psittacosis.
Psittacosis. Yeah. So I still don't know how the hell it was named, but it is bird to human and it looks just like, the other chlamydias under the microscope and it behaves like it. It's in the same family, but it is, you send it by respiratory droplet. And by the way, there are other human to human chlamydias, but this is the bird chlamydia.
Now, this became common not only in parrots, but in parakeets, and they were harboring this deadly pathogen from the Amazon, which was the stuff of domestic nightmares. Imagine your cute little parakeet, which there were literal peddlers going door to door, peddlers of peddlers of parrot and parakeet pandemic fever. We're gonna get it. We're gonna get a good tongue twister by the end of this, right, Santhosh?
Absolutely,
All
Josh.
right, there we are. So, in an era when itinerant peddlers are going door to door with parrots and parakeets for women so often that this became known as the widow's pneumonia or the lovebird sickness.
Oh my. Okay. So there are other widowing type of diseases out there. So I kind of understand why folks got drawn to naming it that way.
Well, it was called widow's pneumonia because widows were well known for getting birds to sing and keep them company in between all the griefing and cleaning that they presumably were doing in the 1920s once their man was dead. And we know this from, shockingly, the Hearst newspaper group. And if it had not been for yellow journalism, the causes of this disease and its connections probably would not have spread so fast. They were really good at disseminating, in this case, if not always accurate information, in this case, a true connection between parrots and disease.
Yeah, so this is the problem with the sensationalist kind of stuff, because trying to figure out what's real and what's not is absolutely crazy. But their strategy often is to take everything, like just grab a whole bunch of crap and just throw it at the wall. It's eventually like something will stick. Like there'll be one out of those 1,000 scandalous stories which are like, that was actually for real. Because if you brought it up at the time with doctors or lay people or anything else, they'd be like, dude, what are you reading? Stop that.
So Martin was not the type to take a chance, and so he sent a telegram off to the Public Health Service in D.C. Request information regarding diagnosis parrot fever. Stop. What information available regarding prevention, spread of parrot fever? Stop. Can you place supply parrot fever serum at our disposal immediately? Stop. Wire reply. Now, a lot of telegrams from Martin and others like him ended up on the desk of Surgeon General Hugh S. Cumming, spelled in the most hilarious way possible.
Absolutely, yeah. You have to. You can't have a name like that.
It's like a vaudeville name, like Hugh S. Cumming. Yes. Hugh? Yes, Hugh. So he then. Don't worry, he's not really involved. He passed them on to his subordinate, Dr. George McCoy, the director of the Public Health Service Hygienic Laboratory, previously the star of his own episode of 80 Plagues for tularemia, as he was the first to discover it. So he sent laboratory workers in to investigate whether parrots were implicated in the Annapolis outbreaks similar to the Argentinian ones. And one by one, every single one of those laboratory workers fell ill. And by February, Dr. McCoy's subordinate, Armstrong, as well as several other personnel at the Hygienic, which was their laboratory, had been removed to the Naval Hospital. By the time the outbreak in the Hygienic Center concluded in March, Armstrong's assistant, Henry Shorty Anderson, was dead, along with 10 other hygiene lab workers. We started in parrots and ended up in a Mission Impossible episode.
Yeah. This is really spreading fast. Now, I've read often about, psittacosis, and it's not something we see terribly frequently here in the first world, but I didn't realize the extent of how contagious this thing is. I do understand that once it gets into the laboratory, if you're not using precautions, nowadays we have, biosafety cabinets and that kind of a thing that directs the air away from the investigator. But there are a few diseases out there like that when you start to culture, purify, whatever it is, then you get multiplication and concentration of these bacteria in one building, and you can start to hurt a lot of people very, very quickly.
Now, with lab techs dropping dead left and right, finding a cause of this was more important than ever, so it fell to McCoy as the senior-most leader to conduct the critical experiments on parrots in the basement in an attempt to isolate what he thought was the virus of psittacosis and develop a serum, as, Dr. Martin was waiting.
Okay.
But the tests were inconclusive, and he was forced to chloroform the birds and fumigate the building from top to bottom to prevent things from escaping. He never even muttered. In records written about this, they said he never smiled, nor muttered, nor grumbled as he performed this task, but just killed and killed and killed, and at the end of it washed out every last cage and gave all the dead bodies of those assorted, unhappy creatures a decent and thorough burning in the laboratory incinerator.
Wow.
Now, after Dr. McCoy's hygienic murder spree, the investigation and the deaths of all these lab workers put the laboratory in the news and highlighted the need for more funding and better facilities. After all, we had only recently gotten the country away from the Spanish flu, as it was known at the time. And the last thing we needed was a parrot pandemic.
Actually, yeah. So, and, always remember, the Spanish flu was not Spanish at all. It was really named as such because, there was so much difficulty with...
Spain was the only one reporting on it and took the blame. Done. See how fast that is to explain? In April, Senator Joseph Ranzel, a senator from Louisiana, introduced a bill to give more funding to the hygienic laboratory and to rename it the National Institute of Health.
Well, there we go. That's wonderful. Okay.
So in case you were wondering, where did the National Institute of Health come from? It came from a sick parrot.
More than that, absolutely. But yeah, that's certainly one of the reasons. That's so awesome.
Now, back to our parrot fever. Again, caged birds were the FM radios of their day, which is part of why this was spreading so quickly. We didn't have Apple phones. We had apple-eating parakeets.
Right.
You have canaries with providing soothing background music, whereas, macaws are giving you drum and bass. Who knows? It was estimated that New York City alone in the 1920s to 30s was home to some 30,000 parrots.
30,000?
It's a lot more parrots than you thought were in New York City, huh?
So, well, I shouldn't say it like that. We here, all of us, when we arrived in the United States, all the way going back to indigenous peoples, but definitely when there was colonization and everything, we decimated all kinds of bird populations, like one after the other. So, okay, gotcha.
Let's start getting into what this disease actually looked like, as now we've given you our whole sordid history mystery. During the first week of illness, most people look pretty well, but tend to run temperatures that are a bit higher than you expect to see for this kind of bacteria. And after 5 to 6 days, you get headache, insomnia, a cough, and profound exhaustion.
Yeah.
What am I missing, Santhosh?
Sorry, say that again. Fevers, cough, profound exhaustion.
Headache, insomnia. Oh, and after that, a bunch of people slipped into delirium and became semi-comatose.
Yeah, this is the weird thing about it, is that you don't have, like you would with a pneumonia, you don't have this concentrated site of the bacterial infection. Bacterial infections that are this bad, generally speaking, will make you very, very fatigued. I've had bacterial pneumonia before and it sucks. But the other symptoms that you're talking about, where you're having neurological symptoms and possibly like meningitis or encephalitis, and this shattering headache that's going along with it, that's weird. That's very, very odd. Along with this, some folks, if you're having the meningitis type symptoms, the headache, you have the light sensitivity like that as well. And it's not true meningitis, but a lot of people nowadays will actually have such a bad set of symptoms that people say, forget the pneumonia. We think he has meningitis, and they'll do a lumbar puncture. So yeah, there's lots of other places where this thing can go, and you end up having these extra pulmonary syndromes where you start scratching your head and say, I don't think this is like walk in the park, normal meat and potatoes strep pneumoniae.
Oh, like one of the fun ones is you get pulse temperature dissociation. So when they're febrile, you actually see relative bradycardia or a slow heartbeat instead of what you would expect, which is a much faster heartbeat, which is, if you're an internal medicine doc, a super nerdy thing to be excited about.
We love it too. So you can see that with chlamydia, rickettsia. You can see it with typhoid fever very famously, where the temperature will be 104 and the person's heart rate will be like 89, 90. Like,
and the person's heart rate will just be like, chill. we don't need to worry about this fever. You do,
yeah,
but the heart doesn't know that.
Sure. So
I'm sorry. It's just, I get excited because do you know how hard that is to just pick up? Like, if you're not Dr. House, to be looking at someone and being like, who's got a pneumonia, and being like, what is wait a minute, they have a fever and their heart rate is normal. Is that because something I'm giving them? Yeah. Is that because of the heart rate medications I have them on? Or, sir, are you a pirate? No. So to diagnose this, even in the 1930s, authorities were aware that this disease was only passed from birds to humans. It was only passed between birds, and inhaling from infected birds was the only human mode of contracting the disease. That's why the show was cursed, but not the audience.
Neat. Okay, so it had to. It couldn't travel that far, but if you were close enough to it, then the bird in this case, you'd get sick.
Yeah, if you're hanging around houses that keep infected birds, and warning signs of infected birds included loss of appetite, difficulty breathing, and bill secretions, which is not an easily identifiable symptom on a human. This is not a disease we culture because cultures are highly discouraged for a couple reasons. They're difficult, they're performed only in specialized labs, and as we mentioned, having killed at least 10 in the initial experiments, it's pretty infectious to lab personnel.
Yeah. So the last one, talking about that first, we have a lot of hazardous agents in the laboratory like this. And because of that, there have been beautiful health and safety kind of precautions that have been given in clinical microbiology labs across the country. So over here, Josh, in California, we have coccidioidomycosis, which causes valley fever. Brucella can do this. Of course, tuberculosis, if you're culturing TB. But now you have an organism that's actually quite difficult to culture. You can isolate it from the sputum, from the pleural fluid, like if they have an effusion. And then, of course, if you have tissue. But the problem is it reverts to a form. You're not going to get a lot of human-to-human transmission with this particular bacterium. But once you culture it on the plate and you're able to grow it, now it can aerosolize off the plate. And that's the scary thing about it. But yes, you're absolutely right.
The mode of transmission, as we've established, is mouth-to-beak contact, or inhaling dry bird secretions and droppings.
There you go.
Which, whatever your kink is, who are we to shame?
So, yeah. Yeah. You need fairly close contact with these birds, but it doesn't need to be that close. So yes, these folks who were in the theater and, they were kind of stroking the bird, they were close by and it was coming off the feathers and maybe a little bit of fecal matter that was on the feathers in the cage. But we also see this, Josh, a lot in people who have to slaughter chickens and other birds for a living. So people who work at the butchers, and then unfortunately at these horrible illegal, like, chicken fights and cockfights and that kind of a thing. We see that too, along with animal smugglers. So don't do illegal stuff with animals, kids.
Always a good rule. Now, interestingly, a lot of this chlamdyia psittaci will usually remain dormant in birds until and unless it's activated by the stress of capture and confinement.
Oh.
Say, if you're in a shipment of 499 other birds from Brazil on your way to Argentina, trying to make it big in Broadway. And of course, they're all out there pining for the fjords.
Yeah, absolutely. No. They're okay, and they can live with this. To most birds, it's not a strict pathogen, but yes. So if they're stuffed and being shipped, that's illegal bird trades and that kind of a thing. If they are in very close quarters, so you're rearing birds for slaughter, that's. Again, so on these chicken farms and that kind of a thing, especially if you don't aerate the area, if they're all in a close barn and stuff like that together. Absolutely. That stresses them out. Immune system goes down and now they start shedding it.
So you've got stressed birds, panicked people, a parrot or parakeet in every household, and a trade outlaw as well as quarantine. So after the announcement of the mode of transmission, sailors were ordered to quarantine their birds.
Oh, that's got to be a fun conversation at the dock. Okay.
And I don't know if you know this, but a lot of sailors in the Navy, at least in the 1920s, a more than statistically significant amount had birds, like New York City levels.
I genuinely thought this was a stereotype. Like one of those things, like when you talk to a sailor, it's like, hey man, where's your bird?
In one particular instance, sailors ordered to quarantine their birds instead set them free. In one case, okay, over 74 members of a crew set free over 90 birds.
Oh, so some of them had doubles and triples. Okay, gotcha.
Which makes me wonder if this was like a pirate ship, or if pirate ships were stuffed with parrots like clown cars. Bird droppings everywhere. I'm surprised that we've made so many scurvy jokes and let the rich history of parrot punning pass us by.
Oh, okay. Well, I would guess then, if you had your cabins, right, where, a lot of the folks would hang out, you had your crew and you had nothing to do for a long time. You wanted a companion, someone you could hang out with. And, dogs and cats, they're okay, but they don't do well on the ship. But yeah, having a parrot or a parakeet, you can just keep it in a little cage and it's fine. And yeah,
I don't know why, but I always felt like pirates were a symbol of office for
what now?
Like the captain or like the parrots were a symbol of office for pirates. Like like the captain gets to have a parrot. And maybe the first mate, but every sailor,
everybody.
I didn't realize I was such a classist.
You're a pirate elitist. You're a parrot elitist. Yeah. How dare you, sir? How dare you, I say.
Beautiful.
No. Parrots for all. Give me pirates or give me parrots or give me death. Or in this case, give me parrots and give me death.
Beautiful plumage, the Norwegian blue. Um, no, I mean, I feel like the next movie should be called Parrots of the Caribbean.
It totally should. If somebody hasn't made Parrots of the Caribbean already, we're optioning that script right now. You and me, Josh. We're
And
making
then
it
it can
big.
star John, and then it can star Johnny Streptococcus pneumoniae.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I love it. Absolutely.
um, so let's talk about treatment. Like most animal carried diseases, our first line tends to be tetracyclines.
Yeah.
So, how long? How much? Um,
Yeah.
how did we discover it? Santosh?
All right. So you've got your person with the fevers and the headache and bad cough and they're fatigued. And then you take their pulse when they have a fever of 102 and it's like 78. And you're like, ha, have you been kissing any birds, sir? Yeah. So you make your
And the guy
diagnosis.
says, "Of course I have. I'm a sailor."
I'm a sailor. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so you draw their blood. You get their antibodies. You've gotten their what's called their serology, and they have positive antibodies for chlamydia. Okay, chlamydia pneumoniae, and if you're really good, you've taken antibodies about 2 weeks apart, so you can see them change. As the disease course goes on, because you hate human beings and you just want the data. So you've done all of that, and now you want to treat. And yeah, tetracyclines are going to be first line. Josh, it used to be the classical old school tetracycline, but we've had so many issues with tetracycline in terms of if it expires, you have problems with it. It's, of course, really scary in pregnancy, and it's not terribly useful in kids because it can cause a host of problems. So now we have a newer generation called doxycycline. And, we can give that one beautifully IV or oral. And it really clears things up. It gets into all the cells where the chlamydia is hanging out and it wipes it out. And uncomplicated chlamydia pneumoniae, chlamydia psittacosis, if you don't have anything else going on. So if you don't have, central nervous system disease, if you don't have endocarditis in your heart, then, 10 days is really good.
What about for children? Do we give, because we can't give cyclines, or we're not supposed to give cyclines to kids? It's one of the few things I remember about pediatric medicine.
Yeah, that's true. So it used to be a black box warning. Now with doxycycline and the more and more we're gaining experience with it, that warning is now gone. So we used to say not under the age of 8 years and all of this kind of thing. But nowadays with Lyme disease, with rickettsia, with chlamydias, if you need to use doxy, you can definitely use doxycycline, no problem. However, when we were worried about tetracycline use in children and causing problems with bones and teeth and that kind of a thing, and also, Josh, in pregnant women where you don't want to use any tetracyclines whatsoever, you can use what's called a macrolide. So the old Z-Pack, Josh. The old Z-Pack will do you for chlamydia psittacosis. It is not as efficacious. Oh, I'll put it another way. We don't have as much experience with using macrolides as we do with doxycycline. So there's a little bit better efficacy. And now we're actually able to, use doxycycline in pregnancy as well when you need to. So, the macrolide, your azithromycin is your backup. If you can't find either of those, Josh, and you are outside of the United States, you can use a very cheap old drug. As long as you check the levels, you can use chloramphenicol with rifampin. But the problem is with those two, if you don't use a doxycycline or an azithromycin, is you have a higher chance for relapse.
And if you're someplace where those are the only two you can get, you're likely to be potentially surrounded by parrots.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. And you can get reinfected. That's the problem. It's just, unlike a lot of bacteria here, you don't gain immediate kind of immune memory from this kind of a thing. So yes, you unfortunately can get sick again with it. Yeah, absolutely.
And although we've been pointing all the blame at parrots because it's just narratively easier, as we mentioned, also in parakeets, lovebirds, and many other personal fowl.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. Boy, what a roller coaster we've been
so
on this episode.
Yeah, that roller coaster was transcontinental, Josh. You took us from Brazil to Argentina onto some, cruise ships coming across to the United States and then coming up the eastern seaboard of the United States all the way up to Annapolis, Maryland. And, from some dirty birds.
We went from Monty Python to Murder, She Wrote.
Yeah.
all the way to a new
maybe House
to the founding of the NIH.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, chlamydia psittacosis was prominently featured on the show House. And in that case, the child had a culture negative endocarditis. So he was having trouble with his heart, and they found, these vegetations and stuff on the valve, but nothing was growing in blood culture. And so they found out that he was a migrant worker and he had been working with chickens, but not telling his family about it because it was an illicit, chicken fighting, cockfighting kind of a thing. So he didn't want to embarrass his family, so he lied about it. So it can go to the heart, endocarditis like that. But yeah, House, NIH, and, the founding of the NIH, that makes me so proud and happy that some parrots and some, domesticated birds necessitated the NIH. That's fantastic.
In fact, the only reason this parrot had been sitting on his perch is that he'd been nailed there.
You will not give up this Monty Python bit, will you?
I honestly don't know how much of our listening audience is familiar with Monty Python's parrot sketch, and I just want to make sure that they go out and watch it because it needs to be seen. It's
finish this episode because we love having you guys listen, and then or pause it and go see just Monty Python parrot sketch, and 100% it's going to be all over YouTube, and you too will be educated about the parrot.
He's rested. So that's it for this week. As always, we love to hear your comments, questions, and feedback. If you'd like to support us spiritually, emotionally, or financially, links to do that are in the show notes, along with links for further reading. We now have a subscription tier that is ad-free and also comes with bonuses like song parodies and behind-the-scenes conversations as soon as I get around to posting them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our theme music is composed by Rachel Leisure. The show is produced by me with a lot of help from Dr. Santhosh and friends. And until next time, as always, get your flu shots. Get your COVID shots. Wear a mask. It will cut down on flu and COVID. And if you live somewhere that gets cold, start looking for a place to go during those chilly months. And once you've done all that, as always, happy travels.
Bye, guys.
And avoid parrots.